Welcome everyone. Today we have our another new episode and we will discuss on digital utopia. We have our world famous speaker Dr. Tamanna Khoshla and Mr. David. My first questions to Mr. David, what you want to discuss about digital utopia and what are the key characteristics of digital utopia? How can technology contribute to creating an equitable and inclusive digital society?
Well, Dr. Shriva, thank you again for letting me be part of today's program. The question is a great one because we are really in a time where the the digital world and the physical world are combining more and more, and we're seeing this ability to look at it as a utopia coming. It's a vision really where society, where technology seamlessly interfaces and enhances human well-being and equality. And this is a trend that we've been seeing more and more, where we see advances in the web, advances in sensors, advances in the different AI tools, the ability to actually create, synthesize digital twins and others are coming into play where this digital utopia is becoming more. So, what are some of the key characteristics? Some of the key characteristics are things like universal connectivity, which has all been a goal for decades. And we're slowly getting there. We still have a ways to go, but universal connectivity is the concept where everyone has access to high speed, affordable access to the internet and the digital world. And the goal is that no one is left behind, no one's left out. Uh, as we see that, though, part of this digital utopia characteristics is data privacy and security. We know that's a big challenge today, but this is where individuals will have control of their data and where there are strong tools, protection, regulations, and really acceptance against misuse and breaches. Um, Part of a digital utopia is looking at education literacy. So on the digital literacy part, they there needs to be in place one of the key characteristics of comprehensive education programs that ensure that citizens have the skills to use technology effectively and safe. But let me take this one a step a little further, because it's not just the digital literacy school, it's the interface to lifelong learning. Part of a digital utopia is that the pace of change is going to be faster than we've seen the last 500 years as we look forward with it. And so we have to, as a society and as a world, embrace the concept of lifelong learning. And the lifelong learning should be one of the big things that this digital utopia really can contribute for creating the equitable and inclusive digital society in your question. Uh, a couple of other key characteristics is that inclusive design. So you have to make it where people of all ages, abilities, and backgrounds can use it, where there is ethical AI. We've talked so much in your programs about artificial intelligence, Dr. Shree, but the whole concept of ethical AI, where it's transparent, free from biases, where it's fair, needs to be there. And the technology plays a critical role. It includes things like bridging the digital divide we've talked about, promoting digital rights, encouraging innovation with a purpose. Part of a digital utopia really is allowing us to move faster. The pace of innovation is dramatically increasing. In fact, I personally believe the next big thing after data and after AI, which you can't have AI without good data, will be speed of innovation. And it really is looking at how in this digital utopia can startups, tech companies, universities, governments pull together in the technopolis, decide to help solve society challenges through technology, and it's building community. part of a digital utopia has to encourage collaborative activities, community building, civil engagement, a global view where people have a voice in a digital world. So it's not just about advanced technology, but it's really looking at how we can work in this digital utopia by using the tools, by the ability to have the interoperability, to have the common systems and threads, and the tools to get over our cultural divides, our language divides that can unite the world in this digital utopia. So I think that's my answer to your question, Dr. Sharif.
Thank you. Dr. Tamanna, what you want to discuss about this question? What are the key characteristics of digital utopia and how can technology contribute to creating an equitable and inclusive digital literacy?
Yeah, so I mean, the whole concept of digital utopia, before it started entering the whole ecosystem, before that, in the 1920s and the 30s, when Ayn Rand was writing, the concept was developing, the whole concept of the individual, how the individual is supposed to be, and lead a selfish life which is not unethical. So I mean, during that time, the war between socialism and liberalism was very strong, and socialists looked at the whole concept of community, and communalism was looking at the whole concept in a way that uh, community needs to come together, and that's the way the government works. But individualism, which was propelled by liberalism, was a different concept altogether. And so slowly and gradually in the 90s, this concept took roots with the coming in of the internet age. Internet age ensured that people had right to freedom of expression, not just freedom of expression, but also freedom to say anything, which whatever they wanted to, from whichever class they were. Slowly and gradually, the internet itself became very less, it became less expensive. So what was happening was that people from any class, caste, region, religion, community, or country could express themselves, and across countries they could communicate with each other. So what was really happening was that uh, it became a society which was built around expression of individual desires. Now the youth had a certain desire to have a society which was egalitarian plus self-expressive. Now after the collapse of Soviet Union, uh, uh, communist China realized this, and I mean, they fostered fast in this direction of bringing about internet revolution in their own country. So now Chinese are in the forefront of the internet revolution, and and so it's a communist individualistic society. I mean, there are billionaires there, there are millionaires there are a lot of people who have come up from the poor, below poverty line level, to the middle classes. And I mean, through the internet revolution, they have been able to surpass US in many ways. So it's a major challenge to the Silicon Valley, Silicon Valley revolution. So that's what I feel, that what we need to understand is that individualism is an extremely important concept, and it has to be developed. uh, it has to be developed so that people are able to not just express themselves, but also help express those people, express the voice of of those people who are not able to speak. So speech of the unspoken has to be there. So yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Z, my first question for you. What are the key characteristics of a digital utopia, and how can technology contribute to creating an equitable and inclusive digital society? What you want to share about the digital utopia? Did it? Can unmute you?
Yes, hello guys. Hello. Nice to see you, David. Nice to see you, Dr. Tamana. Nice to see you, Sharif. Uh, Sharif, I'm very sorry. Can you repeat the question, please? I didn't hear you.
Okay. My question for you: what are the key characteristics of a digital utopia?
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you for the question. I must say that these key characteristics can be defined as uh, equitable, inclusive, and transparent society where technology empowers individuals rather than exploits them. Key characteristics include universal digital access, data sovereignty, ethical AI, and decentralized government. Technology contributes by ensuring fair resource of distribution, enabling personalized education, and fostering global collaboration without bias. So this is the official definition, yes, of this digital utopia. However, I must say that I am not a very professional in this field. I don't know too much about it, but what I can do, I can contribute with my own words later in this discussion because I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. David Smith, my next question for you: how can AI and automations be designed to enhance human creativity and well being rather than replace human role in a digital utopia?
Well, part of the answers that you heard during my first part in Dr. Tanema's opening remarks begin to answer this question, but let me go a little bit deeper into it. You know, part of AI in the digital utopia is not just the AI, but how do you take and turn that into action? How do you begin to do it? And automation is one of the ways to turn the link from information to knowledge to wisdom to action. And it has the potential to enhance human creativity, uh, create enhance human well-being when designed with the right principles in mind. And some of them are really easy to achieve, and some others are harder. Um, One of the ways we talked earlier about is how do we use the digital utopia and the tools of AI and automation to enhance and augment human creativity. And some of them are the collaborative tools that are being developed. We will see increasingly collaborative AI tools that assist with brainstorming, content creation, design, writing programs, creating new forms of entertainment, new video, new songs, and things. And these will allow us to enhance the human creativity rather than replace it because you're working in a collaborative manner. You'll see uh, that these tools will begin to allow us to enhance our skills. We'll be using AI to provide personalized learning. We'll be using it for not just skills, but really development programs to help individual improve their creative skills, their management skills, their ability to explore new artistic domains, and will broaden what each of us can do. The automation, though, is going to be very exciting because we're going to see more and more automation coming in, particularly around the concept of digital twins and others, where we automate repetitive, time consuming tasks, some of the boring tasks, and others, which will allow us to free up us as humans to focus more on creative and strategic activities. But I want to reinstate here this is really an augmentation to our human creativity because AI still does not have an edge on creativity. And it also does not have empathy of things that we really need as we go to a digital utopia. Uh, Additionally, combining AI and automation is going to help us foster human well-being. We'll be using these tools, for example, to offer mental health support, such as virtual therapy, access to other types of healthcare, uh, reducing the stigma with it. This digital utopia with AI and the automation should really help us with work-life balance because we're going to see more AI-driven solutions to manage workloads and schedule. And that we're already seeing that with the use of AI chatbots and others, which are still very primitive, it's it's helping us be more productive so we can have more time for work-life balance. We're beginning to see increasingly uh, AI tools being used to track and analyze health data uh, and beginning to make recommendations for healthier lifestyle and for earlier and earlier detection of potential health issues. Uh, we're seeing it empowering individuals and helping put some transparency in place. We still have a way to go, particularly as we look at how the transparency in the AI systems can really help users understand how the decisions are made and so that they can trust the technology. And by doing those things together, you're going to actually be able to help empower this digital utopia of the human technology synthesis together. Uh, you're going to see things like more human-centric design in this as we're going there, where we'll see the ethical frameworks that we've talked about earlier, the regulatory benefits coming in, but we need to make sure that we have a global set of ethical guidelines to ensure that the AI is there. And then we'll see other things. We'll see how all of these coming together as we look at the AI and automation. Uh, it's going to really help us go and encourage social good, to help us enhance ourselves with our lifelong learning. It will help us begin to bring more people up and level the playing field more and more because of the digital literacy and how this type of artificial intelligence and AI and this automation and the whole way you look at the evolving digital utopia will empower individuals to really uh, reach their full potential. And yeah, the questions you have here is just so good on the topics. But when I think of a digital utopia and the tools I've used there, I go back and see one where we have the empowerment to the humans, we have the empowerments to society, to academia, and all of these come together. And the AI, as well as how to enact upon it, the automation and others, is one of the most important considerations of that, Dr. Shree.
Thank you, Dr. Tamanna. What you want to discuss about how can AI and automations be designed to enhance a human creativity and well-being rather than replace human role in a digital utopia? Can you unmute, please?
Basically, Dr. Sharif, most of um, new technological developments as well as artistic developments creative have been result of human thinking and broadening of the concept of technology itself, as well as I mean, be it art, be it social sciences, natural life sciences, etc. I mean, it's basically what people have have envisioned. I mean, so I guess creativity is something which is central to human being as such as they exist. in the whole uh, paradigm of the world. And in that structure, the way we have thought about space, etc., this the sci-fi revolution, etc., the fictions which we have written, so I guess so human role in digital utopia is most prominent, because without that, I guess it would not move for beyond a particular way. It has to move forward, it has to envision, it has to creatively think. So human beings, I feel, should not replace them, but should work side by side. As David was also saying, that like in things like mental health, etc., we have stigma, etc. So we have to work together to remove these stigmas. For example, a certain even right now we have LGBTQ stigma against them. The way in America, for example, right now, what's happening right now is not very interesting. So I guess these things are there. And so I guess human role in digital utopia is a certainty. And I guess in the medical sciences, as well as the space sciences, it's a must. And also for philosophy. Philosophy is something which takes the world forward. It takes a civilization leaps by bounds. So it's going to take you to a different level of civilization. So I guess these things together can make all of us move forward in a certain direction, which would be very interesting to watch. And I guess because people are wanting human life to increase, we will be wishful if we can envision a society where people would be able to live till 200 or 150 years of age. So that would be very interesting. Yeah.
Thank you. My friend, Mr. Jerry, what you want to discuss about uh, these questions? How can AI and automation has designed to enhance human creativity?
Yes, I think it is very interesting what David and Tamana were saying. I was listening very carefully and I agree. Um, for example, I myself like in the chess AI because it's interesting for me, and we are learning. I'm learning from artificial intelligence in the chess game. So the same for schools, for children. I support the idea that children are learning from AI and working together with AI in their school because it's helping them to learn better. And there are, of course, some threats where people think that the Judgment Day from Terminator 2 will appear. And I think it's not impossible. We should be a little bit careful about handling AI in the future. However, we should work with it as a companion and a helper, and stay human, because this is what makes us. I'm a human, and this is what makes us human, to stay human and use AI as a helper. So that's all from my side. Thank you very much for space.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. David, what are the potential risks of a digital utopia, such as surveillance, data privacy concern, digital divides, and how can they be mitigated?
Well, Dr. Streep, and as your listeners and viewers really know, this is an area that's not unique to a digital utopia. Uh, as we've talked about technologies over the last I guess years with your audience, Dr. Sharif, those are common themes that we see time and time again. But, while the digital utopia does present all the opportunities we were talking about, these are risks and some of the major concerns. And, there are ways to mitigate a lot of them. One of the big lists is surveillance. And, you know, uh, the surveillance provided in this digital utopia can lead to the loss of privacy, civil liberties, and create a society where individuals feel like they're constantly monitored, how they're being restricted, and how they have to really watch everything they need to do. And what are some mitigation strategies for this? Transparent policies, what we've talked about. You need clear and policies on surveillance, ensuring that monitoring is conducted legally, ethically, and really important with public knowledge. And that public knowledge is really important. It's one that we're just now coming to grasp with as we look at these. There needs to be independent oversight uh, to oversee the surveillance practices and accountability. And this oversight really should be done on a global basis. It needs to go beyond our borders of each country because we live in a global society. And this digital utopia is a global approach. And the emphasis on traditional borders is going to, over time, become less and less as we go further down this. Um, we need to use technology more to help us protect ourselves as we look at this risk there. For example, we need to use encryption more. We need to look at ways to look at identities. Some of these that we've talked about, some of the future webs and things is increasingly using different type of avatars as one mitigation way, is so that we can begin to understand ways to mitigate it and to protect ourselves. Data privacy is big as you look at these type of concerns. And, it can not just identity theft, it's financial loss. And one of the things that people don't understand is that as you have data privacy breaches, it really erodes the trust of the digital systems. And if we're going to this more encompassing physical world, digital world, combining interaction, you've got to have things in there where people trust what's there, and you begin to have it there, um, and that people have the ability to control their own personal information. User education is a big part of this. I every day I see things where people are trying to compromise my digital privacy, my data privacy, and you just need to be aware of them. And they're getting more sophisticated, and so we're going to see more and more tools to help do that. We talked earlier about the digital divide. And, the digital divide is a really potential risk where the unequal access to technology can widen the gaps we see today in countries, communities, between countries, between the social, the economic, and the geographical groups, where you'll have sometimes great disparities in opportunities and outcomes. So some of the mitigations on this is we need to better invest in digital infrastructures across all regions, particularly underserved areas have reliable internet connection. And we saw this is really hard to do terrestrially, but we're increasingly seeing things where space-based low Earth orbit satellites and things can help begin to solve this one. We need to have affordability programs to make technology and access to the digital world affordable for everyone. And once again, the digital divide, a big part of it is that lifelong learning. How do we implement digital literacy programs for all, regardless of their age, their background, or the ability? But not just implement them, how do we change the mindset? How do we change the culture as we look at these risks into one of lifelong learning? Because that will go a long ways to helping solve this problem. And I think there's just a couple more I can think of on top of my head for this, Dr. Sheikh. We've talked about it earlier. Is how do we uh, address the bias in AI and systems? And this risk can really, as we look at the learning modules in the AI systems, can really increase bias, leading to unfair treatment things. So let's develop tools and methods for detecting and mitigating the bias in the AI system. Let's work to develop more and more diverse data sets. In your program yesterday, we talked about the trend not only with the large learning modules, the LLMs, but now the trend beginning to go to more small learning modules, more SLMs, is a way to increase these diverse data sets. And they can be global, or they can be regional, or they can be local. And then, how do we deal with the ethical concerns you talked about? Without ethical guidelines, technology can always be used in ways that harm individual societies. So we've talked about, and again, I'm going to stress on this one, we need to develop ethical frameworks, but we need to develop ethical frameworks on that global basis. The fact that the digital world doesn't really understand national borders, where laws and things are applicable, this ethical framework has to be global in there. And with that, we have to go ahead and get public engagement. Every parts of the technopolis, the citizens, the government, academia, small companies, medium companies, large companies, all have to come together if we're going to go ahead and mitigate all these potential risks that are possible in this new world.
Thank you. Dr. Tamanna, what you want to discuss about what are the potential risks of digital utopia?
Yeah, so I guess Dr. Sharif, surveillance, for example, I mean, it's something which has been there in the minds of people from long, uh, way back. So in 1984, George Orwell wrote about surveillance, and how the Big Brother concept comes into the whole picture, and now we are actually seeing it being it's happening. It's happening everywhere. You are being surveillanced everywhere. So I mean, we saw it during the Chinese COVID crisis, and how people were being surveillanced against their will, and the way people revolted. So I guess that's the whole thing. And people in US, for example, there have been many whistleblowers, so such as Edward Snowden, etc., who have raised their voice against these kind of things. And it's extremely uncomfortable, if we have the concept of liberalism and individualism on one hand, and on the other hand we have these kind of surveillance methods the state is using. So I guess the state, we have to have a system whereby people's privacy, is the data privacy, for example, what we are talking about. The internet revolution has accelerated the whole concept of privacy being hindered, and people are being I mean, the whole uh, uh, I mean, criminals can, for example, use your data to defraud or harass users. Entities may sell personal data to advertise or other outside parties without user consent. When a person's activities are tracked and monitored, they may restrict their ability to express themselves freely, especially. So, I mean, these things are there, that that it would lead to people being feeling uncomfortable about sharing information. So I guess I mean, surveillance is something which is a very it can be said to be a problem of the post-truth age. It's something which is extremely uncomfortable to deal with, and people's individual rights are hindered, and this has been provided in our constitutions. At least the liberal democracies have provided individual rights as the basics of the uh, uh, people's rights. I mean, that's also. So I guess we have to control state surveillance, and for that, I mean, utopia is something individual. I mean, I'm just using the word utopia here. So utopia, it's a utopia right now, in an age of surveillance. Utopia means, individual rights. So individual rights are hindered to such an extent that, just using the word utopia to phantom individual rights is something which is a very harsh reality. So I guess something has to be done so that the states do not hamper our individual rights, and but obviously states do have the rights of certain extent, and those have to be protected. And that is why the states, for example, Hobbes spoke about it, Locke spoke about it, Rousseau spoke about it, Hegel spoke about it. So they all spoke about the need for the state, and how a leviathan uh, can control a certain population in a way which would be more healthy. So I guess that's been running since the time of enlightenment. And so I guess so what we need to do is have a state. We do need a state, and obviously for that the social contract has been signed between individual and the state. And and once that happens, there should be a mutual agreement that, this much of space can be violated, but this much beyond this you cannot enter my space. So that has to be there. Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Jerry, what are the potential risks of digital utopia?
Yes, I would like to say that all has been said by my colleagues already. I will just summarize it, that the potential risks include mass surveillance, data privacy violations, as has been mentioned already, widening digital divide, mitigation requires strong data protection laws, as has been said already, decentralized control of data, blockchain, federated learning, digital literacy programs, and policies ensuring equitable AI deployment. Thank you.
Thank you. My next question for Mr. David Smith: how can digital governance framework ensure ethical AI, decentralized decision making, transparent data uses in a utopian digital society?
Um, the digital frameworks which you're talking about in this one are ones which, we've talked about a couple of the other answers as parts of it, but there's multiple type of frameworks that have to be in place, from the ethical AI to data governance to the different ways to do it. So one of the first we've already talked about, I'll just briefly talk about here, is the ethical AI. You need to use these frameworks to develop very, very clear guidelines. And the more comprehensive these guidelines can be, to create standards and to create global standards, it will really help the development and deployment of much more powerful and greater impact AI. But as we put these guidelines in place, we need to audit them. We need to implement regular audits to ensure compliance with them and to detect any bias or harmful practices. But as we do this, we also need to have a system in place to identify the AI tools and other things which do not follow these ethical guidelines and standards. You need to have inclusive development. We need to represent the global ecosystem we live in. And we need a wide range of viewpoints, and this will help us minimize the bias that we see in there. And it really will help with this decentralized process. So the stakeholder environment, I'm sorry, stakeholder involvement, including all of that technopolis we've talked about before, are critical to get here. You have to have the public, you have to have the academia, you have to have the government, you have to have the corporations involved to ensure their needs and concerns are addressed. I think one of the big things to answer your question on that you queued up here is where you have the decentralized decision making in the question, because the centralized decision making really helps us become the global digital utopia we talked about. So you need to use different type of file systems, different type of ledger systems to enable decentralized decision making. But this needs to be a distributed system, and you need to allow the multiple stakeholders to participate. As the world becomes more centric around rules such as data governance rules, data privacy rules, as we see more and more devices, the Internet of Things and how that's going, we're going to have to put distributed, decentralized systems in place as we're moving rapidly away from the very large data centers, which cannot do this. You're going to have to put new governance in place with both the public forums and the collaborative ways that we've talked about earlier, because you want these collaborative frameworks uh, and these platforms that are going to be required to meet the demands of the collaborative frameworks to be able to have a sense of working together, of shared ownership and shared responsibility. And once you have the shared ownership, the use of these frameworks should go up. We talked about things like transparent data, continuous monitoring and improvement. And all of these are there. But if we can truly implement these digital government frameworks, particularly like I've said multiple times, on a global basis, we can build a digital society that will prioritize the ethical AI. That the fact that we're in this global decentralized world, and that we need to have global decision making and transparent data usage. And this will create, I think, a fair and inclusive and hopefully a system of trust that can be used globally. And as said some things in the public comments here, the use of the digital twin is one of the tools that will help us by using these frameworks to accelerate that even faster, Dr. Sharif.
Thank you. Dr. Tamanna, how can digital governance framework ensure ethical AI?
Firstly, I guess ethical AI would require human beings to be ethical themselves. If they are not ethical, and that's what is decreasing in the world as the civilization is progressing, from way back to from Platonic time, Plato's time to now, if we see, or for example, in Indian context, if I say from the times of the Vedas, we see, and what it was written during that time, or the Islamic and the pre-Islamic state to what now it is, it's deteriorated in a very big way. The industrial revolution and the scientific revolution which took place, and after that whatever happened, coming in of liberal revolution, feminist revolution, the LGBTQ revolution, the communist revolution, all of these slowly and gradually moving towards a post-industrial society have led to the development of technology. Technology is good, but sometimes it might just lead to unethical practices, for example, surveillance. I mean, obviously it does have its pluses and minuses, but if you are, for example, I am an advocate of individual rights. So to me it's extremely disturbing when I see a person's rights are violated in a certain way. So I guess uh, an ethical society would need an ethical human being, an ethical mind, an ethical mental state of being, which means that you know data usage, etc., data privacy, um, it has to be it has to be controlled. I mean, the human urge to intervene in another individual's world space or eco space needs to be controlled. So I guess for that, we need to I mean, I'm working on a project which is like dealing with the different political ideologies as well as spiritual traditions, and looking at the world from a better perspective, whereby we would be able to have a system which combines political ideologies with the spiritual realms, and a better society is able to be envisaged by people. So technology plus ideology together can help us in a post truth society. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jill, what you wanted to discuss about digital governance framework.
Yes, I would like to say that we can design AI to be ethical. I believe it. Let's do it. Let's create a better world, which is without wars, without criminality, which is fair, which is transparent, accountable, and full of privacy by designing together ethical AI. Let's do it, guys. And I thank you very much for your words before my pre-speakers, because this is very interesting. I'm listening, and I'm very happy to be here today.
Thank you. Mr. David Smith, if you elaborately discuss about ethical AI, decentralized decision making, and transparent data usage uh, in a utopian digital societies with some uh, technocracy examples.
I know there's some great examples as you uh, begin to look at, as we look at some of the universal connectivity built around that, you know, we can see leveraging some of the satellite technology to connect and to use globally to do a lot of different things. And the satellite technology and public Wi-Fi initiatives really help us as we go back and try to bridge these digital divides. Uh, we know that the new end-to-end encryption that we're seeing increasingly in our communication applications are some of the tools in this framework we're going to be continuing to develop, which will enhance that. You know, educating people is key to making this work, Dr. Shree. That data literacy is essential for everyone. And it's not it's understanding how to use the technology, how to recognize these online threats, how can they critically evaluate the digital content. We saw in times in the last 4 or 5 years where misinformation often exceeded the true information available. So these comprehensive digital literacy programs, starting at a very early age, including to a very senior age, are really very, very important as you get there, because you know the, you've got to put things in place that, because the digital divide is a significant, very significant barrier to achieving a digital utopia. Uh, and these frameworks things have to address that. So you have to address the issue involving how do you invest in the digital infrastructure, and it will take considerable investments. How do you provide affordable access to the technologies and the changing technologies? One of the statistics today is that about 80% of the access to our digital infrastructure today is through mobile devices. So understanding that trend and how that's going. And particularly as I look at developing countries, we're going to see that the other new way to access is not just the mobile devices, but taking what were dumb devices in the past, such as televisions, making them smart devices, and making where they can be part of the access to solving this digital divide, and to fix in the frameworks here so that it becomes more inclusive in being able to do that. But we have to promote the digital rights of people in these frameworks and things to maintain trust in those. And it's we've talked about fostering innovation and building communities, the surveillance, the ethical concerns, and how do we pull these together and make them work? Because it's complex, it's an ongoing process, it's a global process that requires the collaboration, innovation, and the commitments. And so that to me is the further enhancement for your question.
Thank you. Dr. Tamanna, what's your closing remarks for today's session?
Yeah, so I personally feel that digital revolution and digital utopian society is here to stay, and it is very interesting times which we are living in. But we also have to be extremely cautious that our state surveillance and infringement of individual rights should be avoided, and not at all infringed upon, as per, as a citizen of the state which I live in and the world I stay in. I guess we are in a cosmopolitan world whereby people are we need to live like one earth. We are one earth. So I guess privacy of not just, the way immigrants, for example, the rights right now of immigrants, people who are like facing problems in US right now. So obviously every state has certain restrictions, I understand that. But we also are, we are, as citizens, we have a certain um, we have certain issues towards each other. We have to have a certain rights which we grant to them, which we do not grant to the state. So I guess that's the whole thing. And so yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rob, uh, what you want to discuss about this digital utopia and how can digital governance framework ensure ethical AI, decentralized decision making, and transparent data uses in a utopian digital society?
Well, that's what the digital governance framework is supposed to do. I mean, that's why you would have a framework, is to accomplish that particular task. The framework. I'm sure you've had you guys are going to have to. You're going to have to make sure I get these times right. I thought this was going to be at 9:05 today, not at 8:05. So anyway, the framework assures the compliance of the different components. That's the idea of the framework, and so you have to have a certain level of external monitoring. And a certain level of enforcement to assure the rules are in place. When we talk digital utopia, and I'm sure others have kind of mentioned this, but just in case you haven't, the thought really goes back to the fact that there was a belief that once you connected everybody to everybody else, you'd have this wonderful democratic utopia, and people would be involved, and the decisions in the world would get better. And I think you could argue the opposite kind of occurred, and it showcased that the controls over the information to assure accuracy of that information as to people were making decisions based on facts was not provided. And so we are overwhelmed with false information, and people are making decisions that aren't in their best interest as a result. And we're doing it at nation state levels. And so that makes the framework, when you're really considering this massive amount of connectivity and potential collaboration, very important because people have to be protected. The information that they receive has to be trustworthy so they can trust it. And then the decisions they're making are more likely to be in their own best interest, which isn't occurring right now. So governance, that governance is critical, enforcement is critical, and external monitoring. You cannot monitor from within the system. You have to monitor without it, because otherwise you have problems with confirmation bias and well, for lack of a better term, corruption, where people are doing what it is they want to do and not doing what it is that they need to do. And that's where this all breaks down. So that's probably the most important part. The very thing you're saying, the very basic nature of this, of those elements are what makes the governance important and critical to the overall effort.
Thank you. Mr. Giri, what's your closing remarks for today?
I would like to just thank everybody for this discussion and about digital world. And I'm looking forward to meet you again in the future. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Rob, what's your closing remarks? Or you want to add any points?
You're
Can you
muted, Rob.
unmute, please? Mr. Rob?
Always help us on mute. I'm excited about the concept of digital utopia. I'm not excited about the reality of it. We're implementing a communications network and connecting everybody to everybody else is certainly important. Getting everybody involved in the decisions that affect them is important. But if you don't assure the information they're getting, all you do is create something like, well, what the Communist Party created. That the Communist Party is supposed to be all about the people, but what happens is the government then controls the information, and so the people get manipulated by the government, and so it flips. A communist structure, once as it ages, ceases to be about the people, and it becomes more like a monarchy or a dictatorship over time, and so it directly against the underlying concepts that we're supposed to create communism, which is why communism has a bad name. It's not because its underlying concepts are bad; it's because under execution it has worked out horribly. And so it is so important that when you want to apply power to the people, you have to assure people can use that power intelligently, and that they aren't compromised in a way that they're manipulated or they're restricted from using that power so that they lose it. And that, unfortunately, has always been the outcome. So digital utopia, I believe, can be done, but can only be done with the proper amount of governance, control, and oversight.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for joining today's sessions. I request all of our audience, please share our content as much as possible. Thank you, Dr. Tamanna. Thank you, Mr. David. And thank you, Mr. Rob, for joining today's sessions. Thank you. Bye-bye and take care.